I think Clutch, you pretty much know exactly what you're signed up for. They're the opposite of 100 Thieves. It's just like, all right, they got LirA, Apollo, and Hakuho. They're going to be a top 9 team. It's just like, I don't know. Like, I don't understand what they were doing when they signed that roster, but they have like the kind of X factor with Febiven. He honestly didn't even look that good in EU LCS, so I doubt he'll look good in NA. For me, that's just like, got to be one of the most bottom teams in LCS. I think if they win, it'll be an upset.
Oh, classic words from Doublelift. Hello and
families.
Welcome back. That's how we're going to kick off our final game of the day, where Team Liquid and Clutch Gaming will hit the Rift. First up, selecting the blue side, you just heard from one of their members, it's Team Liquid, with Impact in the top lane, Xmithie in the jungle, Pobelter mid, Doublelift himself bot lane, Olleh supporting, and Coach Kane.
And on the red side, they're doing a lot better than just top 9. It's Clutch Gaming in the top lane, solo. In the jungle, LirA. Mid lane, Febiven. Bot and support going to be Apollo and Hakuho, with David Lim as the coach.
Well, we know what Doublelift thinks of going up against Clutch. Apparently, he's not too intimidated by the prospect of this matchup.
No, definitely not. I mean, I personally would be a little bit intimidated after Febiven's performance yesterday. The man was an absolute monster. Had 10 kills, had a pentakill on his ear. He was doing fantastic. And while they did have a weak second game, they are 2-1. They have looked pretty good overall. And I do think it would be a mistake to actually underestimate that core who came from Envy of Hakuho and Apollo and LirA, because I think that they were actually quite solid with that solid 3. And then bringing in Febiven, who did perform very well in the EU LCS, I think this is a team that has a pretty big upside and definitely could be a playoff team.
Clutch has looked good. Liquid has looked good. Honestly, I'm expecting this to be a pretty exciting battle between these two teams who both show potential to be contenders for that top echelon in the North American LCS.
Yeah, and Liquid, to speak a little bit about them, people are definitely looking at them as one of the best teams, certainly in the league. A lot of people coming into the season were talking about, oh, well, who's going to be better, TSM or Liquid, seeing those as the really top teams, and Echo Fox now kind of being added into that conversation. 100 Thieves, some of these teams that have had really good starts, certainly being in that conversation as well. But TSM obviously not with a good start, CLG not with a good start. So Liquid is at or around the top of the league without question, and they're looking to prove themselves as the best team in the league, not just one of the best.
Right. This is the team that more than anybody else, I think people were hyped up on from the off-season changes. People were like, oh my gosh, they got 3 out of 5 of the Immortals players.
Won the off-season.
Yep. Going to the off-season. This team looks really, really good, and they've been performing really well so far. But now they do need to take down Clutch Gaming. Doublelift clearly doesn't think that that's going to be too tall of an order, but at the same time, I think if you can manage to have a very convincing performance against one of these teams that also looks good right now, that just makes you look that much better.
We also have to remember that Doublelift didn't even know who was on MB, and they almost lost to them. Or sorry, Optic.
Optic, right.
so whether or not he thinks that Clutch is going to be very good,
I'm beginning to think Doublelift just doesn't know who's on any of the teams.
He hasn't checked the rosters yet.
Yeah, it's okay. It's okay. It's only week 2. It's only week 2.
Yeah,
He's got plenty of time.
so. And I mean, they did lose to 100 Thieves. So they have obviously dropped the game. 100 Thieves, as he said, is very unpredictable. They weren't really sure what they were going to bring out. And they did fall down to them yesterday. So looking to avoid a 0-2 week here as well. Definitely going to be wanting to put on a strong performance.
Well, to hear a little bit more about this matchup, let's go ahead and send things back to the analyst desk.
Thank you very much, gentlemen. Hakuho having to exit the stage for just a moment, feeling a little ill, so we're going to give him some time to deal with that. That gives us time to talk about the matchup, and in particular, the bot lane, as it pertains to Hakuho and Apollo up against Doublelift and Olleh. This is a big featured matchup.
And I think that's a bit of a problem, potentially, if Hakuho is not feeling great, because Team Liquid is a team that I think a lot of people identify as primarily playing through their bot lane, and in their loss to 100 Thieves, they were shut down for the most part. It wasn't like they were dominated in 2v2, but they had a Vladimir with no TP. They forced a TP play on the bot side. Olleh dies under his turret early on, and then Doublelift isn't able to play as this aggressive shot caller that he tends to be.
Yeah, and you speak about bot lane focus for this team. Impact is a rock in the top lane. Pobelter is a solid mid laner. But Doublelift, as well as then the jungle support core of that team, are going to be the playmakers.
Yeah, absolutely. To your point, the aggressive style that he likes to play was kind of negated in that loss. And that's where I turn to Hakuho and Apollo. These are guys that we have said in the late game aren't necessarily the ones you're looking at to hard carry a team or something like that. But they can be very scary in the lane phase. So again, looking at them to kind of deal with that aggressive style that Doublelift wants to play, maybe turn around on him.
It feels like they've been partly overlooked over the course of our early discussions with the team, where it's the LirA and Febiven or the shiny new toy everyone wants to talk about. Solo's the concern. And in the bot lane, it's like, well, these guys are good, they'll be fine. And then they were really critical in that victory over CLG, where they were forcing plays when the top side was failing.
Yeah, they did a great job in that bottom lane, and they are a reliable bottom lane that normally isn't that flashy, but we actually got to see a little bit of the flash in the COG game, especially there, an actual flash after getting the Varus ultimate off to generate a lot of pressure here.
Right, this was a situation where if Apollo was a little bit more aggressive there, they could have got this kill simpler, but this wasn't the last time they did this. They were constantly destroying CLG's bot lane here and using LirA to help do that, which is a different win condition than we normally talk about with this team.
Yeah, it's a one hit off of the first CC, so that's the type of stuff you want to see more of if they're going to carry games through the bot lane.
All right, now that we've directed your attention to the bot lane, we're going to toss you back to the casters to get us into game.
All right, thank you very much, Dash. Let's see how this is going to play out, whether it's through the bot lane, whether it's through elsewhere on the map. I just want to see a good game to close out week number 2 here.
Yeah, definitely so. And Apollo and Hakuho are going to be up against one of the best bot lanes in the league with Doublelift and Olleh on the other side. But I think mid lane certainly can have a big impact here too. LirA and Febiven were great together in their first game of the split. Febiven was incredible yesterday. And that's something that you always are going to have to be worried about when you are going up against this team.
Into Champion Select for the last time this weekend. Let's see how they want to do it. Ornn banned away by Team Liquid. Clutch Gaming taking Kalista off the table. Pretty normal stuff.
Yeah, certainly so. We'll see if there's going to be any curveballs kind of thrown our way in the pick ban. Varus, not really one of the more typical bans. It's something that Apollo does like to play quite a lot and is very comfortable on. We saw in that B-roll there against CLG, able to act as kind of a catalyst for a lot of the action coming around the bot lane, finding Varus ult after Varus ult onto Stixxay and really allowing them to kind of pressure that lane quite heavily.
Jace also going to be banned away by Clutch Gaming. This is a champion that is undeniably at meme tier when picked in NA, but teams still respect that pick enough that sometimes they need to take that off the table.
Yeah, and Impact is a good Jace player. He's a guy who plays a lot in solo queue still, certainly very comfortable on it, and it's something that sometimes can limit your options as far as what you would feel comfortable picking on the top side, because it can be very exploitative in certain matchups, and perhaps even against something like this GP, could have been a worry, but Impact has been pretty comfortable to first pick this, to blind pick this. He already played it once, performed quite well on it early.
Well, with Zoe and Tom Kench banned away, that's 2 more of those pretty popular champions out of the picture. You already mentioned the Gangplank picked up by Team Liquid. Clutch's first round, it's Ryze and Sejuani.
A very powerful combo. You're getting a lot of tankiness and consistency out of this jungle. Someone who's going to have high baseline values. You're always going to be very effective in the team fights on a Sejuani, even if you are just kind of soaking up damage. And Ryze has been such a big ticket mid laner across the board. And for Febiven, who's extremely comfortable on the pick, we saw it showcased in the last game. We were going to see it showcased here. The Hourglass plus ultimate combo allows you to play more aggressively and always kind of have this free escape in your back pocket, which can be very strong.
Well, speaking of free escapes, Tristana, a champion that's got 2 different ways to keep herself alive. Buster shot, rocket jump. This champion is built for late game carrying, and that's exactly what Doublelift will be looking to do on that one as it's locked in for Liquid. Pobelter going to be playing the Malzahar this time around, as actually it looks like Clutch might be thinking about a couple weird things here. I don't know.
It's certainly possible. It'll be interesting to see if they are going to bring out any unique picks for the top side, but
nope.
Gnar is the more expected one. It is a solid matchup into GP, as we talked about last game. I definitely can put on pressure early. We did see that LirA was able to get a pretty heavy CS advantage above Darshan, despite the fact that his flash was forced early. And some of that was because of Golden Guardians having good map movement, but just in general, it's just a favorable matchup for Clutch in the early lane. Another matchup they have to definitely talk about is the Malzahar into the Ryze. I think that Malzahar is someone who gives a lot of troubles to Ryze in the team fighting and also when junglers are involved, because it can be extremely difficult for Ryze to actually be able to respond when he's a relatively shorter range mage and very close to being ultimated by that Malzahar. That being said though, in the earlier stages, one Ryze E actually insta-kills all the Voidlings, so you're able to push this guy in, you're able to have more access to roaming and moving around the map as this Ryze, so we'll see if he's going to be able to kind of utilize that to help LirA invade or perhaps to move around the map and get something done elsewhere.
Well, taking a look at how the bans are going in the second phase, you've got all 4 solo laners already picked this game, so you're not going to see any bans towards those. Instead, Clutch Gaming looking at the jungle, banning away both the Zac and the Jarvan, 2 very popular picks we've seen a lot of recently, so it makes sense to take those off the table. Liquid, in the meantime, getting rid of a couple of AD carries that they don't want to have to address this game with the Kog'Maw and the Ezreal banned away.
Yeah, pretty interesting to see what Apollo is actually going to go to, because he's played 2 Tristana games, 1 Varus game so far this season. Kog is banned away. We see the Ezreal banned away. Caitlyn is going to be the instant pick there for Apollo, and does have a very strong laning phase, but a lot of people have kind of lost their, I guess, confidence in this Caitlyn pick. They feel that it's not as strong in the later stages of the game. A lot of the scaling kind of got nerfed. You got less attack speed per level and these sorts of things. It still can be a strong pick, but to me, it's only a pick if you are kind of going to be able to win lane and stay a fair bit ahead. And they have saved their support pick for last, so if it is Taric getting locked in for Olleh, I would not be surprised to see Hakuho go back to the Morgana, who is one of his specials, and really something that he's very comfortable on, and is also something that is, in my opinion, very advantageous into the Taric matchup because of how comically easy it is to Black Shield with Dazzle.
Right, you can block it. It's incredibly telegraphed. Like, you know what's going to be connecting, where it's going to be hitting at, but with that Taric locked in, they've also got the Gragas picked up for Xmithie, which I like to see because this is a champion that Xmithie is comfortable on, even though it's not exactly in the meta, and that's fun to watch. I like seeing players and teams switch things up a bit, even if this time it's coming from it being forced away from the Zac and the Jarvan that are banned out. I'm still looking forward to seeing what Xmithie can do on this.
Yeah, definitely so. And I'm a little bit surprised to see the Braum. Not that the Braum is an atypical pick, but just because Hakuho has been such a Morgana player for so long, and I feel like that's such a good matchup. But going to be playing Caitlyn Braum, obviously a good combo in and of itself, and adding even more crowd control to this lineup. When you have the Braum stun, you can obviously trap out of that for Caitlyn. Braum ultimate, very easy to trap out of as well. You have point and click CC from Febiven. You have knockups and stuns as well from the Sejuani. So there's a ton of crowd control coming out from this Clutch Gaming side. And for TL, it's more, in my opinion, about how evasive they are, about the actual amount of AoE damage that they're putting out in the team fights. And we'll see if they're going to be able to come out on top.
And speaking of Caitlyn traps, one thing I want to address, because I think it actually is kind of like a hidden buff to Caitlyn, League of Stopwatches is actually really good for Caitlyn.
It's
because
true.
every time they pop a stopwatch, you just put a cupcake under them.
Yep, it's the same thing with GA, actually. Caitlyn does really well into those sorts of items because it is so telegraphed where they're coming back up. Same thing with Zillion also. The Zillion res can be very frustrating to play against Caitlyn because you come up, you get instantly headshot, but that only really happens if you're actually winning the fight, right? Caitlyn has to be able to be in a position where the stopwatch is used defensively for the other team, and then you're able to sit around and wait. Otherwise, you can just be pushed back out of the fight and not have the opportunity.
Let's see how they end up working this last game. One last battle here on Summoner's Rift. Let's see if it's going to be Team Liquid or Clutch Gaming that walks away with the win on this one. Teams are out. Let's see how they play to level 1.
It's going to be pretty interesting. We do see Spell Thief start here for Pobelter on the Malzahar, maybe just rushing towards that Frost Queen's Claim. And I do like this sort of a build more into a short-range mage like the Ryze, because in my opinion, it's a lot easier to actually stack and get the Tribute passive there, be able to get to that quest completion, which can be very nice for the extra move speed. So we'll see how well he's going to be able to do that, or if he just sits on Frostfang, because I have seen people go straight to Frostfang, get that 500 gold upgrade for the 10 CDR, then go back for something like a Morello's and CDR boots, and all of a sudden you're on 40% CDR.
All right, speaking of items starting out at the beginning of the game, let's go ahead and do a stopwatch check-in. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 8 stopwatches.
Stopwatch.
2 stopwatch. Well, either way, we're going to skip all the way to 8. Only Gnar and Taric not having those this game. So expect to see a lot of sort of what we saw in the last game with stopwatches being used to counter all the big plays that'll start to happen once everybody's got those playmaking ultimates and other abilities. But
probably Biscuits, I would assume, for Olleh then, if he's not going to go for the stopwatch. I do think Biscuit delivery can be quite strong, especially if you are expecting to kind of be getting poked out. Very, very strong mastery, and the extra sustain can make it incredibly hard to actually push this guy out of the lane on top of your already pretty strong healing.
Not to mention the fact that Taric is a very mana-hungry champion, and the Biscuits do give you a larger mana pool. Whenever you eat one, you get a bonus total amount to your mana, so they'll help him a little bit with that as the game goes on, but nothing special at the start of this game. You're not seeing the 3-man invade on the enemy blue like we got to see last game. We're not seeing any of those like cheeky early maneuvers.
Yeah, nothing too crazy. You know, there are some kind of differences that you can compare and contrast to the previous game. You see double Spellbook bot lane here for Clutch Gaming, so Apollo and Hakuho are both going for that. They can double TP, they can move around the map with that. Whereas on TL side, this is more what you're probably used to seeing at home in solo queue, something a Guardian, Fleet Footwork. This is not the Spellbook Tristana that we saw Stixxay playing last time. This is kind of more powerful, I think, as far as in lane, and you have the extra sustain, so you're not going to be getting poked out as much. Plus, as far as the later stage team fights, I actually think that the movement speed buff is fairly impactful that you get. That speed up can be quite nice, and it can help to delay your lifesteal from being a necessity. You don't have to build that as early on Tristana, who honestly doesn't usually want to.
But you also have to keep in mind, on the side of Team Liquid, you have 2 extra opponents with the Summoner Spellbook. You always have to consider those changes. Keep in mind the fact that the Braum might be able to teleport into something from across the map. It's just one extra thing that's always got to be considered. As now junglers towards the top part of the map. Xmithie farming up his own Gromp. LirA heading towards the Krugs. Nobody really seeing those opportunities to get into the lanes just yet.
I'm also going to be pretty interesting to see how Apollo actually just does straight up in the laning phase with this Caitlyn, because you know, obviously not a very good career record there on Caitlyn all time, but to be fair, Apollo has been on some pretty poor teams, so that does kind of skew the overall record. Does have a pretty strong KDA there. But without Fleet Footwork in lane, you actually are at a pretty significant disadvantage as far as the trading patterns go. You have significantly less sustain than this Tristana will, right? And if that's going to actually come into play, because if you're picking a Caitlyn who, in my opinion, is much more of a laning-focused champion than Tristana, and you're losing lane to a Tristana or giving the Tristana free lane, then the way I see it is, hey, you're just giving them a scaling advantage, and you're giving them, you know, a very easy matchup. So that's something they got to worry about. But Gragas is coming down.
Good to go in, try to make that play. Apollo with the flash away to keep himself safe will avoid that one. Good attempt from Team Liquid.
Yeah, very well played, actually, by Apollo. Flashes to the side, uses a 90 caliber net to gain even more distance so that Xmithie cannot kind of just follow up with the flash and that body slam to come through. So well done, but they do get out one summoner at least.
Febiven teleporting back into the mid lane after going home to shop by himself that tier, get that stacking on the Ryze. You know, he wants to pile up as much mana as he can, just because the champion revolves so heavily around it. But bottom lane, Doublelift and Olleh, 34 CS compared to the 33 of the Caitlyn. Although that is a slight lead, remember, it's a slight lead, like you just said, in a matchup that shouldn't be a lead at all. If Caitlyn's not bullying her lane, something's amiss.
Yeah, and to be fair, there were quite a few AD carry bans thrown Apollo's way, so you know, he kind of had that disadvantage as far as the draft goes, but it's just something where you're expecting TL to be getting more out of this lane. LirA nicely played, steals away the Raptors. Doublelift very close to actually having that passive proc on him, but it seems like he'll be okay for this.
Olleh makes his way back into the mix. Gonna force Hakuho back. Olleh smacks that ward down before it has a chance to fully go invisible. Pobelter in the mid lane, 34 to the 43 CS of Febiven's Ryze. And we talked about how the last time we saw this guy, he had an absolutely incredible performance on Azir, including a pentakill. I was kind of bummed to see him lock in the Ryze instead of the Azir. I was hoping to get sort of a reprisal of that role, but we will be seeing him on the Ryze here today. Another champion he's very familiar with, Xmithie. Gonna see his opponent taking his Wolves.
Oh, he mistimed it. Looked like Xmithie actually got that.
But now LirA, the one who's gonna get got if he's not careful, tries to flash away, but fails it. Tragedy as Team Liquid finds first blood.
Yeah, LirA stole away the Raptors, was looking to steal away the Wolves. He didn't have Smite, and he mistimed his actual combo there with the E for the XU damage. So not only does Xmithie get it with the barrel, he fails his flash, gives first blood to Malzahar, who was losing to Febiven. So now that lane gets messed up and loses his own Raptors, and that is just not what you want to see.
That really couldn't have gone worse for LirA in practically any way, but
I hate to see that.
Yeah, you really hate to see that happen sometimes, unless you're Team Liquid, in which case you really do like to see that.
I really like to see that, yeah. I mean, Malzahar is the champion that should be losing these early matchups, and here it is. I don't even think Xmithie detonates it. I think it just times out, and he just happens to get it, and LirA honestly would have needed to early flash to even have a chance to get out, and then Pobelter is actually standing in between him and the wall. I'm not sure if that was intentional to kind of push him off the wall and make him feel that flash, but it actually looked like that was some League of Legends body blocking, which is not something you really normally see.
No,
and if that was intentional, that's honestly very impressive. It looked like it was.
Next level strats, sometimes you see somebody unluckily...
That's the 200 IQ.
Yeah, that's 200 IQ right there. Sometimes you see somebody get stuck on a minion, but getting stuck on the enemy mid laner because you fail flash over the wall.
He's running in between him.
Well played by Team Liquid. Unfortunate for LirA, but it is a 300 gold lead for Team Liquid. So it's not like the game's broken open just yet. It's not like everything's quickly gone to hell in a handbasket. But LirA has put himself in a spot where he's not doing a whole lot early that he wants to really be proud of. His impact.
Damage from Solo.
Yeah, taking a lot there from Solo in the top lane. 62 to 52, the CS on that Gnar compared to that opposing Gangplank. Apollo, you can see, swapping the summoner spells out with the spellbook to get back to lane faster. You mentioned this last game, Azael, to build up that farm lead and just sort of give yourself that extra laning edge.
Yeah, exactly. You can see Doublelift based on a cannon wave, which is normally relatively safe as far as, not losing much farm because the cannons take a long time to get knocked down, but your opponent TP's back, he pushes it in, the wave will reset, minions will be lost, and that can establish somewhat of an experience and CS advantage. We'll see if the fight breaks out here, though. They're looking to pressure this blue buff, TL moving up, and Frostfiend's Claim's already completed here for Pobelter.
Liquid wants to steal this one away. Will they get it with the smite? Yes, they will. Xmithie securing that one, dropping the ulti, trying to keep himself safe. Gangplank ulti rains from the sky. LirA going to be taken low. The stopwatch out to keep him safe, but not for long. Pobelter grabbing himself a kill.
And that kill right there is kind of the result of using your flash, right? Earlier, he fails his flash, dies there. Now he does not have his flash to escape. Probably should not have even bothered using the stopwatch at that point because he's dead man walking, does get taken out, loses the blue buff, and they're starting to kind of snowball that into somewhat of an advantage, pressuring here on the bot side and looking to actually move up and go right down to Hakuho.
Wow, aggressive plays from Olleh and Doublelift. They're going to get themselves another stopwatch, but Xmithie is here to try to finish this one off. Not quite enough damage. Team Liquid backs away.
Febiven is roaming down, though, and we see LirA has respawned. He's moving across the map, but TL is already out to safety.
Team Liquid's up 2-0. They're up 1,000 gold, and it's both kills going over to Pobelter, both deaths going over to LirA. Let's see how this one happens again.
Yeah, they're trying to move in, looking to try to pressure this, but honestly, a really nice Gragas ultimate kind of splitting up the fight. Febiven gets pushed out. LirA taking a lot of damage here, and there's no real way for Febiven to cleanly enter the fight because the GP ultimate is kind of zoning him out. So I think that LirA just had to accept the death and just take that one without using his stopwatch.
And let's talk LirA a little bit, because this is the guy that on Envy last year was the player that so many people were impressed with, and they were saying, man, get this guy on a team where he's able to do more, right? Like, this guy's a top-tier jungler. When Envy placed 10th in spring of 2017, it was LirA who was voted the all-NA-LCS jungler, which was practically unheard of. And then Envy got themselves to 6th place in the summer split, largely thanks to what LirA was able to do in the jungle, and he's a big part of what that team was. He's a big part of what this team is, but this game, things just aren't going well for him. I mean, when we heard from the analyst desk at the start of the day for Jad's stats, he was like, who's the jungler who's always behind at 10 minutes? And it was LirA.
Yeah. And as far as, gold counts, there can be some things to explain that and to talk about it. You always have to contextualize stats as far as looking at, well, how much time are they spending ganking? Are they farming more? Are they doing these sorts of things? But LirA is looking for a gank. Oh, nice stopwatch. Pobelter.
The notorious POB with the dodge. Can he get himself all the way out, though? Nope.
Rip. But it looks really cool.
It was really cool when he did it. He might almost be able to get the turn kill. Febiven barely staying alive. Good Lord, man.
You got the 200 IQ stopwatch and then the 210 IQ stopwatch from Febiven that gets him out.
See you later.
Nicely done there from both the mid laners, honestly. Even though Pobelter went down, he played it well. But yeah, you always have to contextualize stats, right? Because when you look at someone like LirA, who is spending a lot of time generally being pretty aggressive, and when you think about something like his Eve game, that's generally a jungler who's going to be farming less and trying to gank more and doing these sorts of things. And you compare that to Mike Young, who most people are considering to have a pretty slow start to the season. He's someone who actually, on average, has been up in gold, regardless, right? And it's not always indicative of performance because you have to contextualize that. But either way, here is the play again. Flanking from both sides, passive gets knocked off, setting up what they think is a free ultimate. It's so nicely done there from Pobelter, timing it out and almost turning around this kill. Very close to actually knocking down Febiven. But with that last tower shot and Xmithie coming in, trying to take him out, as we know, was not able to do so.
All right, 2-1. Clutch Gaming gets themselves on the board now. Still got ourselves a very close game here, Azale. First Drake is the Mountain Drake, which normally doesn't see himself get taken too fast. But, if these teams want something to fight over, you've got something in that. Rift Herald also alive here on the map. But one thing I kind of want to draw attention to, a lot of red wards on this map right now. Not nearly as many Liquid wards as there are Clutch Gaming.
Yeah, certainly so. Very, very little vision going out right now for TL, and they are playing kind of a more defensive game. It feels like they're willing to sit back and farm a little bit more. If you look at top lane, if you look at bot lane, in my opinion, they have scaling advantages on both the sides, so you don't necessarily need to have as aggressive vision, but you would like to see them at least establish defensive vision, and that's what Xmithie is trying to do now. They have the pink from Olleh in the bot tri-brush, and now Xmithie clearing out some vision around their red buff and trying to cover that. So as long as they can maintain a decent defensive line, they don't need to go too crazy yet.
Febiven and LirA hanging around in this rush. They'll see Xmithie and Pobelter. Let's see if they go for it this time. The ulti not going to be dodged away from any longer, but the return ulti is there from Pobelter. The damage comes through. Febiven grabbing the kill on that one is now Xmithie.
Bot lane's almost here,
Doesn't
though.
have a lot of damage left to make this work, but Doublelift shows up. LirA taken down by the Buster shot as Febiven has to get himself away. The stun comes through. Razzle dazzle, baby. Febiven trying to get himself away. Will it be enough? Doublelift wants to say no, and he'll say it all the way home with 300 gold in his pocket. Impact and Solo now into a 1v1 of their own. Solo going to be taken very low on this one,
Impact.
but the damage onto Impact could just be there. Takes a bite out of those oranges.
Solo might make it.
All right, we're good. We're good.
All right, we're good. We're
We're good.
All right, action all across the map there, though. The 2v2 started out by LirA and Febiven, and they do come out on top, but it's Teal's bot lane who has the shove advantage. They make the rotation faster, and that equalizes and really gets them the advantage later on in that play. So nicely done from Teal's bot lane again, and TP coming back here from Apollo, but their turret is the one that's almost knocked down. And certainly the early game is going heavily in Teal's favor.
The turret is almost bopped. Doublelift is up 2 kills. He's up 11 CS. Everything is going his way right now. Maybe that trash talk was deserved if Doublelift really sees himself as that much better off in terms of where his team is compared to Clutch. It's showing right now. They're doing a good job early.
Yeah, if you can back it up, you talk as much as
You can
you
walk
want
the
it.
walk, you talk the talk.
There you go. And here's the play again. This time, no flash, no stopwatch to actually avoid the combo here from Pobelter, but they're looking for another gank now on bot side, and TP will come in to dissuade it. That one is actually from Hakuho, so he'll complete that TP.
I like seeing
it,
the
I
mind
like
games
it.
from that, because so often it's so ingrained in players' minds, like, oh, TP, the solo laner's coming, we can't go in on this, guys, but it's like, nope, it's just me, Braum.
Yeah, exactly. One of my favorite solo queue plays I've actually seen is a top laner with a TP mid laner. He's getting ganked. He runs into the bush, starts TPing to his own minion in front of them. They think that the mid laner's TPing in, so they just run away.
And the
he just
top
walks
laner-
out of the bush and just leaves.
The top laner just teleports on top of
Yeah.
himself. All right, that's pretty good. That's
Gotta
pretty
love
good.
it.
What else is pretty good for Team Liquid, at least, is taking down that first turret, taking themselves up to a 2,500 gold lead. Infinity Edge completed for Doublelift. Apollo still juggling around with some pieces here. Has the BF sword, has the Zeal, but like you said, the scaling advantage in the favor of Liquid right now. Stun lands onto Hakuho. He's got the Unbreakable, so he won't take a ton of damage walking away from this one. But now, with that first turret down, Doublelift and Olleh free to roam around a little bit here.
3 men from
Xmithie.
Clutch.
I mean, Clutch has their own first turret down in the top side, so we'll likely start seeing some rotations, some swaps here. But that mid lane turret, very, very close to dropping itself on the side of Team Liquid.
Yeah, the big concern, honestly, for Clutch Gaming right now is how strong Doublelift is. When you have him on this Tristana, that is going to scale very well, and he is over 1,000 gold ahead of his opponent. They knock down that turret. That's concerning because Caitlyn is not going to put out nearly as much, in my opinion, as the Tristana in the team fights, and now there's no safety there, and they're going to go for Apollo.
Apollo jumped on Hakuho, coming in to try to keep him alive. The GP ulti comes down, though. Apollo barely escaping away from this one, but Hakuho, the sacrificial lamb, Doublelift using the reset, but Impact is right there behind him to secure the kill. Barrel over the wall to knock the Arctic armor off of LirA. Another barrel now going to be spawned. Impact takes that one a little bit lower, trying to find the lockdown here. The barrel comes through. Another barrel knocks him back, but it knocks him right where he can dash over the wall.
Yeah, thank you very much. He gets out of there. But
Thanks for the assist.
back to mid lane. He TP's back mid lane, knows that's not a fight that they can win, so just trying to shove up, trying to pressure turrets, and at the same time, Solo shoving up topside again, knowing he can't really join in, so it's more kills for Liquid. It's another dragon that is going to be going their way, and here is the initial play once more. No turret for safety there, not spotted that they are being flanked. Doublelift simply comes in, straight onto Apollo, looking for the damage. The GP ultimate is there to assist as well, and as he's kind of getting away, you can see Impact started that TP very quickly, coming in for the flank, gets an easy kill and the flash out as well, and then the chase down on the LirA. was unsuccessful.
Yeah, and if you're looking at Clutch Gaming right now, you see one guy on the team who looks like he's doing pretty well for himself. You've got Febiven 2-1-0, but the problem with saying, okay, Ryze looks like he's doing okay right now, he already had to pay the Malzahar tax, 1,300 gold into the QSS that's not into those big combat stats.
That's true. Definitely something you have to watch out for. It does hurt you a bit, but at the same time, it's going to be very useful also against the Taric, also against some of the CC that can be coming out from there to allow him to play more aggressively. And it's going to be a lot on him to be playing aggressively. He cannot afford to sit back and be passive. He needs to make plays. He needs to be up in the face of the TL carries and killing them, because simply put, there's not going to be enough damage, I think, coming out of Apollo and coming out of Solo to really make that happen, unless they can land some sort of really good combo and have Febiven up in their face.
I do like the fact for Clutch Gaming that Solo has built himself this massive farm lead that he has, 196 compared to 152. He is pretty much even in gold with his opponent because Impact does have, the Gangplank bonus, having the extra gold generation, but Solo's still relevant. He's got the Frozen Mallet, working on the Black Cleaver, so he's still going to be scary if he can find his way into a big team fight or a favorable split push situation.
Yeah, Solo has honestly done very well in the 1v1 for himself. He's matching up in a favorable matchup, but he's got a good farm advantage. The problem is, GP just needs to survive and ult elsewhere and be relevant. And he's picked up 3 assists for himself just from kind of ulting elsewhere on the map, and then he got a kill by TPing in and picking up Apollo. So that, in addition to the bonus gold you're going to get from Parlay, means Impact is more than relevant. And he's kind of done his job. And unfortunately for Solo, his team was losing elsewhere on the map, which meant Impact can get that bonus gold.
Now, talking about gold, talking about who's relevant, I want to check in on items across the board. You can see your Trinity Force there for Impact. Static Shiv, now done for Doublelift. You talked about the Tristana 3-item spike, but with 2 items, he's at least still a pretty big threat in these fights, having that 50% crit chance now, having the extra attack speed along with the procs. Frost Queens as well as the Morellonomicon done for Pobelter, so plenty of cooldowns as well as the ability to set up the plays with the spooky ghosts. I mean, you're just not seeing the same level of itemization spikes coming through on the other side.
No, I mean, he's massively stronger than Apollo right now. Apollo is nowhere close to completing his IE. He has 1,000 gold in the bank, and he only has the one component. He has the PF sword, so he's very, very far away from that, and just inherently is going to put out less DPS than Tristana in most team fights, unless you can really find a way to kind of get things going as far as getting some really nice traps or outranging his opponents, or they can lock down Doublelift or something. So it's honestly going to be very tough.
The other big items of note I want to comment on are both AD carries still having stopwatches available. So if these fights turn into a pick the AD carry type of situation, they both have that one-use get-out-of-jail-free card that they might be able to use to turn things around. The top side, Doublelift and Olleh putting in some work on this Tier 1 turret. Tristana so good at bursting those down with the power of the explosive charge and the rapid fire. I mean, just that many extra auto attacks makes it easy.
Yeah, you're going to knock them down very, very quickly. Also has the Mountain Dragon, which helps even more. You also have to point out the fact that Pobelter is on 40% CDR, right? These are kind of the item combinations that I was talking about. TL is actually going to start up the Baron. They are going to have to retreat, as that's spotted out. But when you're on 40% CDR with Lucidity Boots and Unsealed Spellbook, you have such low cooldown on your flash because you get the 25% already from your actual Unsealed Spellbook talent, and you have 5% additional from the runes. You do another percentage there from the boots here too, so it ends up adding up to quite a lot, and you do get to the situation where you pretty much always have your ultimate available, and Flash Ultimate is available so often that you can be picking people off left and right.
Infernal Drake about to spawn in just under 2 minutes, and this is my absolute favorite Drake, Azael. It means people are going to fight each other for it. Almost always. Nobody wants to give those things up. Any other Drake that you would just let pass by, not this one. I want to see if Clutch Gaming will try to fight for this, because right now they seem to be pretty set into their defensive ways. They're on the back foot. They're just trying to farm up, avoid making any big critical errors, because they know that Liquid's kind of knocking at that threshold where if they have one more big fight go their way, they can start to just run away with the game.
They certainly can. It's extra scary if you are Clutch Gaming to give over that Infernal, because it's GP top. This is not a Maokai. This is not someone who is not building a lot of AD or AP. Impact is going to get a massive bonus from that as well. So your AD carry gets a huge bonus, your mid laner gets a huge bonus, and it becomes just that much more powerful when you're having someone from all 3 lanes really benefit from that Infernal Dragon. And you add in addition the already kind of scaling advantage you have here for TL. It becomes exceptionally hard if Clutch gives that up. And at the same time, if they can pick it up for themselves, well, hey, then maybe you can equalize things a little bit as far as scaling goes.
Well, it's 45 seconds till it spawns, but it's Team Liquid with the tempo here in mid lane, trying to lay siege to the tier 1. Olleh is not afraid to step up, Xmithie either. They'll force their opponents off of this one, taken down, pretty much no contest, and that's all 3 outer turrets done now. That's that much less map control for Clutch Gaming.
It certainly is, and as TL has gotten stronger, they've become more aggressive with their vision. You know, you pointed out early in the game when TL did not have a lot of vision on the map, and CG is trying to go in and actually clear out some of this now, but they had established essentially full vision control around the Baron that's now being contested, but they're becoming more confident, they're becoming stronger, they're knowing that they can actually move forward and look to threaten these objectives, because when you do have Malzahar, when you do have GP and Tristana, as well as a Taric, you can take down this Baron not only extremely fast, but almost risk-free, because the Taric can heal you through it so well with the AoE healing and the passive resetting over and over to give non-stop healing on that Baron. So it's definitely a big threat that they're going to have to be worried about.
Speaking of threats, Febiven trying to be the threat for his team, creating this side lane pressure, but the problem is, when he's up there, they know he's not hanging around the Drake pit. It's very easy for Team Liquid to secure that Infernal for themselves. It's actually another Infernal that'll spawn next, which, if you're Clutch, you really would just rather see it be anything else with the control Team Liquid has over the map right now. You don't want to see him picking up that extra damage. But what are you going to do? I mean,
there's not much, right? It's you have to try to maintain vision control, you have to try to farm up, you have to try to get to a strong point, because, like, as of now, I mean, yes, Apollo has gold in the bank, and he is going to be able to complete his IE when he goes home, but Doublelift is on 3 items, and Apollo is out on the map with 1.5. He's going to base now and pick up his second, but they're just not in a position where they can fight whatsoever. So all you can really do is try to fight for vision, trying to establish where your opponents are, and try to take odd man fights, right? If you can at least keep vision going, and then maybe catch Olleh trying to go in and ward for the next dragon, kill him off, you know, catch Xmithie trying to move in and ward and kill him, then you can try to force something. Then you can look for a fight, but until you get a pick, it feels like they just don't really have any business even trying to take a fight.
It's got to be a pick or a punish.
Yeah.
One of the two. You either make them make a mistake and take advantage of that, or you find somebody alone like you just said. But outside of Liquid putting themselves in a spot where one of those is possible, Clutch is really strapped for options.
They certainly are. I mean, if you do a telegraph engage into a Tristana, Malzahar, or a GP who are ahead, plus there is Taric ultimate to back them up, not only can they absorb the engage, but they can turn that around very quickly.
Whoa. So much damage onto Solo there. That's the power of that triple item Tristana, 2 Zeal evolutions with the Infinity Edge. Means you're talking about 80% crit.
Yeah, Solo actually going a pretty interesting build here, picking up a Zeal for himself.
Oh, is it the Phantom Dancer Gnar?
I think it might be, but oh my god, LirA is just gone.
Okay, with him out of the picture, that means Baron becomes a very real opportunity here for Team Liquid. No enemy jungler to steal that one away, and now they're forcing their opponents to come challenge this.
Yep, just start it up. If Clutch is not willing to respond, you get a free Baron. If they are, you turn for the team fight. Because I said, look at Olleh spamming these heals out. Every second he can drop a 2-stack heal. They're not even losing any health, so Clutch is forced to just give it over. And TL is just in such a good position now. They didn't even have to expend any summoners to get that sort of pick, and LirA has really not been having a good game. He's been struggling to actually get involved. He has to continue fighting for vision, though, which puts him at risk.
LirA 0 and 4 on this Sejuani, and let's take a look at how he gets picked off here.
Yeah, they're just trying to fight for vision. He's not expecting Pobelter to be up here. He's actually trying to retreat away from Doublelift, but walks straight into Pobelter, gets ulted up, and Liquid is looking to fight.
No, Apollo taken out at the start of this one means there's not going to be any fight today. Just a cleanup as Doublelift moves in, guns down Hakuho, killing spree for him, a double kill for Impact as they also destroy LirA. Solo trying to get away from this. Olleh tries to flash after, doesn't quite have the angle on the dazzle, but Team Liquid is steamrolling this game.
Yeah, I mean, this is going to be at least one inhibitor. They can even try to push for the win, honestly, if they want to. This is just a dominant game. I'm expecting them to reset, but there's enough time, and they can knock down these turrets so quickly that if they want to play it risky, they can go for more. You see Doublelift heading to the top side, though, so they're just going to try to knock down more turrets, secure the victory, pick up more gold.
There's no reason to do anything exceptionally risky when you're this far ahead, right? I mean, you can just easily take the game. 10,000 gold up, 26 minutes in. Complete control over the map. 5 men strong with Baron.
Especially when you do have a scaling advantage, right? The one time I do disagree and feel like, hey, you have to take some risks is if you could get outscaled, you don't want to sit around, but they're going to get another pick.
No, again, Apollo caught out, taken down 0, 3, and 0. The flash ulti from Pobelter. Apollo does not have a QSS of his own, and against Malzahar, that is why greed is a deadly sin. You have to be willing to pay the taxes, Ale.
It's a tough call to make, though, because they don't have any damage, right? They're behind, so he feels he needs to build DPS. Doesn't go for the QSS, gonna get punished, and Liquid looking like they're gonna close this one out.
On to Nexus turret number 1, and it's not even a factor any longer. Clutch Gaming, they've got no way to respond. There's no damage, there's no tank ability, there's no chance here. Another ulti. Pobelter just is getting these left, right, and center. That's all she wrote. Clutch is done, and Liquid takes the game.
Absolute decimation of Clutch Gaming there for Team Liquid, looking so strong, start to finish, and it just seemed to kind of fall off the rails very early on for Clutch, with LirA getting caught out, trying to go for the invade, loses flash, dies, then dies again at the blue buff. Things really started to spiral out of control very quickly, and it never really felt like they could get any purchase in this game.
We talked about how both these teams were looking good in the games we've seen them play so far in these first couple of weeks, and if one of them could really just destroy the other in this game, it would bode really well for saying, all right, that is a top-tier team right there. And Team Liquid, that is a top-tier team right there.
Definitely looking very, very good. Bot lane especially, you have to say, some big, big advantages gained from them. A little bit of credit to Clutch, though. Both their solo laners, I thought, performed fairly well. You did see Solo actually holding out pretty well, getting some pretty big CS advantages. Febiven was fairly active in the mid game, finding a couple kills for himself, but jungle was very far behind. Bot lane was very far behind, and Liquid just played too well as a team and made it look pretty easy.
They never slipped up. That's one of the big things I saw too. So often you see teams get a lead, put themselves in a power position, but then they don't know how to properly close that out.
Yeah.
They don't know how to transition that into the further stages of the game. Liquid had no issue with that. They were always in control.
Yeah, and I think that's the most encouraging thing here for TL fans, is seeing how cleanly they close out this game. You know, how good their shot calling was in the later stages. There was no hesitation. They move towards Baron, they get vision control, they get a pick on the jungler, they take down the Baron, they find another pick, they end the game, right? This is making it look extremely easy from the position that they were in. Yes, part of it is to do with composition and the advantage that they already had, but definitely being able to make that call and being able to close out so cleanly is something that has been in short supply in the LCS so far this split. A lot of teams struggling, even with massive advantages, to close games and really having them stall out, giving more opportunities to their opponents, which sometimes can cost them the game.
And you said right as the game ended that it looked like Liquid was just in control and Clutch was slipping
Yeah.
from very early on. And Clutch did slip very early on, but then they never found their footing again. They couldn't staunch that bleeding. And considering how many times LirA died, considering how little it seemed like they were able to do, we talked about how they were on the back foot, but they just never found the opportunity to try to propel that momentum the other way.
Yeah, and I think a lot of that is just to do with TL having really good map movement, having really good vision. Clutch never really found the opportunity to surprise them, to get that jump on them and try to pull off something with a Gnar, try to do something, you know, with Ryze ultimate in for the Sejuani. They just never got it going.
It was such a convincing win from Team Liquid, and now we're going to go ahead and send things down to Olleh and the Team Liquid jungler.
Thanks, guys. I'm here with Xmithie. Congratulations on your win against Clutch Gaming. And I want to ask you, what was the game plan going into this match?
I don't think we have any specific game plan for pretty much any team. We just play our own game, and yeah, like everyone just communicated really well during this game, and we played pretty cleanly.
What do you think was your winning factor then?
Winning factor was just, I guess like this game was just like everyone was like collapsing really well. So like if they invaded our jungle, if they wanted to fight, we were always, like our team was always ahead, and like we just countered their play.
Now, around this time last year, it was the rebirth of Xmithie. Everyone had their eyes on you. I see you rolling your eyes, but trust me, everyone was going crazy for you on Immortals. Now that you're on a team filled with all of these superstars, how does that compare?
I guess like this team, I kind of take like a backseat role, since like everyone's really vocal in this team, and I don't have to speak out loud like much more than I used to in Immortals. And it's like a good and bad, I guess, because sometimes I want to do more, like sometimes I want to do less. It's just like, I guess it's like a good in between for this team.
Well, having played together, you've now both won and lost the game from yesterday. How does Team Liquid handle a loss and turn it into a win the next day?
For our first loss, I'm actually surprised that our team like took it really well. Like everyone was really positive that we learned a lot. Let's do better next time. And yeah, we learned a lot. We did like a few hours of talking, and then yeah, we figured out what we did wrong and what we can do better.
Well, congratulations again on your win, and thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us. And to wrap up the day, let's go back to our analyst desk.
Thank you very much. Obviously, Team Liquid picking up a win here, but we set it up to be a bot lane focused game. That's where all the attention was going to go, and in a way it was, but to me, I feel like only one team was aware of that fact.
And they won.
And that team won the game.
Yeah, because we have done this. We did one of these yesterday where we compared Huni versus LirA. That's kind of irrelevant in this game because we had a Doublelift and all of Team Liquid against Hakuho and
was not a
Apollo.
2v2.
Yeah, and just to talk about this draft a little bit, one team clearly was drafting for what was a 1-3-1, and the other team was drafting to smash bottom lane.
Yeah, so obviously there's all 3 picks of solo laners and jungle on the top side of the map for Envy, or excuse me, Clutch Gaming, and so they're leaving their bot lane. Yeah, it happens. And then they're leaving their last picks to grab their bot lane, and Team Liquid's like, great, we're gonna keep throwing bans at them. You think you have Gnar versus GP, and you should probably get up there sometimes to gank it, but on the flip side, the bot lane is gonna get heavily focused.
Yeah, and look at the bans from Team Liquid. It's a Varus, a Kog'Maw, and an Ezreal, so they're stuck on Caitlyn, and they decide to do this lane pressure strat with the double unsealed spellbook. It just doesn't work out.
Right, that's to your point of like, the bot lane focus began in Champion Select by pinching Apollo down onto the Caitlyn. Caitlyn, along with Braum, they take that unsealed spellbook kind of duo that we've seen for C9. How is this supposed to work?
I mean, just in terms of the matchup, it's not even like that great because Taric will be able to heal out a lot of that sustain that you just have through having the fleet footwork for Doublelift.
And you can see specifically with the unsealed spellbook on the AD carry, when we saw C9 and some other teams do this properly, it's when your top side is strong and your bot side is neutralized. Because then you can use the TP on the AD carry or the support to augment the strength of that other side. But as we see here, Team Liquid just took all crush lane masteries right there, as well as brought the whole team down bottom. So those guys with all these utility spells just got crushed.
Well, yeah, having utility and trying to play a tempo game is impossible if you're on the gray screen. Right, and that's essentially the approach that Team Liquid took, is saying, hey, fine, if they're gonna let us push them in, then let's just dive them under turret and make this even more a winning matchup for us.
And this is absolutely a situation where Team Liquid's jungle mid coordinated a lot better on what they wanted to do this game, because Xmithie went down there early on, Doublelift jumps in, getting aggressive, starts blowing summoners from the very get-go of this game, basically, and they didn't let up the entire time. They keep jumping in aggressively after they get this flash.
Here's a taste of the dogpiling that took place in the bot lane.
Exactly, and notice this is never a 2v2. This is almost always a 3v2, a 4v2, or a 5v2 if you're counting the Gangplank ultimate, especially this one. That is 5 people contributing to just the 2 members of Clutch. Apollo's like, guys, I made it away. No, it didn't.
Flash into it.
Right there.
It actually does more damage from the move speed of hitting the flash into the bullet.
Oh, that was hard to watch.
Exponential growth for Team Liquid's gold graph. And, you know, first solo, he did a good job generating a substantial CS advantage in the top lane versus Impact's GP. But LirA dying in the jungle off some just suspect invades, his bot lane getting crushed, creating a bit of a power vacuum, so no one could ever get up to help him blow that game open through the top lane advantage.
Exactly. A lot of blame does have to go onto LirA for this because both teams did choose very different strategies. And the counter to someone dogpiling bot lane is to then crush the other side of the map or be in place to do it in the first place. But with double TP, that's actually going to be just systematically weaker.
Right.
And the fact that LirA was just kind of dying in random places made the dives that TL sent bottom lane unpunished.
Yeah. That much more effective because there's no response, either by counter ganking or by making a play happen elsewhere on the map. For Team Liquid, when they're winning, damn, they look good so far. I mean, that's the thing, though, right? It's when they're winning. They've had a couple come-behinds as well, but in their 3 victories, they've looked damn good.
I think they've shown potentially the best understanding, along with Echo Fox, of how to close a game out when they have a lead. And you can see that kind of built-in synergy from Olleh, Xmithie, knowing, like, let's grab this Rift Herald next, let's use it this way, let's keep pushing our advantages harder. And that's why they look so dominant in their wins. They have stalled out a couple times when they don't get the advantage right away, or if the mid game comes around without a clear advantage for Doublelift or something. But when Doublelift is ahead, this team
Yeah.
is rolling.
And that's their main strength, is when they get bot lane ahead, they crush. I actually feel like the other lanes haven't done a huge amount other than any little advantage they have. They just send it bottom lane
Send it
over
bottom
and
lane.
over.
Right,
So
right.
that part of the game, they have been the best in the LCS.
Flip side for Clutch Gaming, it's going to be a tough loss to stomach, kind of for that reason, where I'm sure LirA, as an individual performer who's expected to be, near that top of the jungle, rankings here in North America, this was B, C, D- performance. I don't even know.
Yeah, absolutely. And we had that stat at the start of the day, how he was one of the lowest in CSD, but a lot of the times it was kind of forgivable, where he's like playing Eve and getting heavily focused, or CLG is doing a bit of a cheesy level 1 to get it to take E on Zac, and then they're punishing him. This was one where he did not have any net disadvantage starting, and he just threw it away.
Right, and isn't that crazy? Because at the top of the, or rather, coming into this game, you had pointed out we've been doing so much talking about LirA and Febiven and this duo and what they can do for the team, and then, hey, they've shown us some pretty sweet stuff, and then the moment we swap the focus elsewhere, they seem to have fallen apart a little bit.
Sweet Saturdays, really sad Sundays.
I
Like
guess.
both these times, LirA and Febiven have smashed in their first game of the week, and that's completely coincidental, I feel like. It just does speak to some huge inconsistencies, though, in those two being able to take over the game.
I think inconsistent's the right word. They did turn a couple ganks in the mid lane. Pobelter tried to outplay him and couldn't, but you have to stay within the realm of not inting while you're doing that.
Not inting is a good strategy in League of Legends. Now, there were plenty of S-tier performances this week, but there are only 5 spots in the OP5, so this week's OP5 are Darshan, Dardoch, Phoenix, Sneaky, and Xmithie. First up in the top lane, CLG's Darshan.
Yeah, interesting picking the OP5 for us this week as well, because only one team went undefeated, and that was Echo Fox. But Darshan was smashing in the game they lost against Clutch, and then went unkilled in this really long game against Golden Guardians, where he was the one clutching out a lot of those plays at the end of the game.
It's a situation where a lot of top laners had things working for and against them. Good laning phases turned into bad team fighting. Bad early lanes turned into good team fighting.
Yeah.
And then the one consistent player that we could identify was Darshan, despite the fact that his team around him is very, very inconsistent.
Right, yeah. It was a tight conversation there, though, for top laners. Moving right along to the jungle, we find Echo Fox's Dardoch.
Much easier conversation to have.
He's amazing so far in the split. This is
Zac.
like, take the Dardoch that was rookie of the split 2 years ago and be like, I wonder where he'll be in 2 years, like before all the toxicity and switching teams.
This
He'd be
is
like,
where you would want-
Yeah, man,
yeah.
he'd be crushing the NALCS. That's what he's doing right now. So the first 2 weeks of this split feel like Dardoch finally starting to live up to some of that potential. We've seen it before, but he definitely played great this
Two
week.
years later, off the Lee Sin onto the Zac. That's what you want
Yeah.
to see for
Boom.
career growth. Just learn tanks. There you
Yeah,
go.
man, I love it. I love it. I also actually really love that soundbite, though, where it seems like this whole idea of toxicity, the toxic team, seems to be unifying
pulling them together,
It's
man.
unifying them. It's banding them together. You heard that, like, oh, if we huddled like that, we'd all be in a fist fight. I love that they're using it as a unifying sentiment. Moving right along to the mid lane, we find Fox's Phoenix.
He is a player who has a hard time shining on his team because you have Dardoch and Huni, who are a bit of attention grabbers. But over the course of the weekend, and even last weekend, he's put in really, really amazing performances in the game versus C9 when it was really back and forth. His team fighting won them that game in a lot of ways, as well as later on in the games today. Another huge performance for him.
Jad, this is going to open up conversations about what happens when Fly, oh, sorry, wrong team. What am I thinking?
Well, you're thinking because they actually switched out Challenger teams last year. Phoenix was playing in Challenger, and then Fly came.
And here he is up, yeah.
And Phoenix had kind of disappeared off the face of the LCS Earth. Now he's back performing, which is impressive.
Yeah, very much so. In the bot lane, we have both C9 members, Sneaky and Xmithie.
This, we talk a lot about LirA this week and how much focus he was getting with all his counter picks, but a lot of that was made possible and successful due to the fact that Xmithie and Sneaky were stepping up in the bot lane, winning their laning phase, and then rotating onto the map, getting these good unsealed spellbook teleports in, as well as just great Taric ultimates out of Xmithie to save and keep things alive.
Yeah, going double unsealed spellbook in the bottom lane, as these guys did, is actually harder to lane with than going with something like Fleet Footwork. So the fact that they split lanes and then were still able to teleport means they were playing really well in those lanes.
Good on them there. Any more discussions around these players that you guys want to have?
No, I just think that Xmithie was clearly performing as the best support this game, or this weekend. The flash forward on Taric to get the ultimate onto his jungler was just a beautiful play and really heads up, which is what we want to see more of out of him.
Please, 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 more epic plays. With our Game 5 in the books, let's take a look at the standings. The Echo Fox stock continues to rise as they end week 2 in first at 4.
Scary little day for them, though.
It was a scary day. 100 Thieves, Cloud9, Team Liquid end the day in second, leaving CLG, Optic Gaming, and TSM at 7th. In 1 and 3 score lines. Now let's pull up your predictions to see how things shook out for you this week. And the totals, Mark, pulling ahead by 1 here. Jad, how you feeling about your performance today?
Dude, I'm really salty still.
That game 1?
About that game
Game
1,
buddy?
TSM had such a big gold lead.
TSM?
Yeah,
Right.
I know. I kept picking teams that weren't good at killing the Nexus, but were good at other things, and just expected them to kill the Nexus for some reason.
The
Optic pick, though,
I was about to say,
good.
Optic FlyQuest was a very close game.
I have to tip my cap there to him, and 1 game is not a substantial lead. He was up on me 1 game at the end of last
You know what?
weekend.
True.
Now I'm up 1 game, we'll see.
What if I just said I was better in best of 3s? Better at predicting best of 3s.
Well, I mean,
What?
there's no best of 3s anymore. You have
Right.
best of 5s and best of 1s. It's a useless skill set.
I don't know what that means, Jad. I don't know. What do you want, an award?
Yeah, G2
You're
said they were
welcome.
better in best of 5s, and it excused all the losses they'd have in best of 3s. Can I do that with predictions?
Sure.
Yeah,
Sure.
all right.
I'll let you claim anything
I'll
you want to
predict
claim,
better
Jad.
in series play.
This is a platform. There's a camera. You have a
Yeah.
mic. Say whatever you want to say.
Yeah.
Making great usage of that power right there. That's
I
a great
will
use
win.
of it.
Let's get out of here. Let's get out of
At some
here.
point.
Moving
I'm
on.
only down 1 game.
Jad,
Predicting
stop it. Yes.
60%.
Right now.
I win every series. I've been 3-2 every day. I've always won the best of 5.
Yeah, you're in last place.
I've always won
You're
the
in
best
last
of 5.
place
The
in the
coin is in
prediction
last
game.
place, Dad. The coin is 0 and
No,
5.
I didn't see the coin on the graphic.
I win best of 7s. Can I say?
All right, I'm putting a
Best of
stop to
20s.
this. We're going to move on throughout the weekend. We've been combing through the Twitterverse to see what epic moments you called out. So let's pull up this week's LCS Big Plays, brought to you by Acer Predator. First up, Shane Miles reached for the easy pun and called Febiven's pentakill what it was, clutch.
And there's the kill onto Biofrost. Double kill so far with the Azir. Pops the hourglass to buy a few more seconds. Starshawn, so gets bounced up and taken down 3 kills already for Azir. Ooh, onto the back line.
This could actually be a penta.
This could be number
This could
4.
be the penta.
On towards Rain over the bind is there. Give it to him. He deserves it. And the penta kill for Febiven.
Sejuani coming, okay? Sejuani here.
Sejuani knows.
Go Jace, go Jace.
Go Jace.
Get the penta, get the penta, get the penta. Penta.
Like how the team handed over the Penta right there as far as building teamwork, but also the ultimate timing of him to have it that late in the fight, I think is what surprised COG, whether or not you argue about whether or not they should have gone in there.
Right,
Still a good
but that's an entirely a solo queue moment when like you've seen a 30-second skirmish and you show up to it and you're like, there's no way anyone has any of their cooldowns left.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna go all in and wait. He still has his ultimate. Are you kidding me? All right, next up, Arizo had caps lock engaged for the Echo Fox jungler's ult prediction. Let's take a look.
Irish, getting hit up. They'll be able to.
Oh my God!
No way, Dardoch! The Arctic Assault prediction onto LirA.
Okay, I'm moving to Jace.
Jace. He might have no.
Nice.
Go to yeah. Pressure Nash.
I love how the whole the communication system goes from like information to whoa.
I like Driv's call. He had the diction on prediction to make it super clean.
Yeah.
I don't know. That just impressed me.
I don't know if
Maybe that's the vocal theater side of
I like the
my
ultimate
personality
person.
that
Yeah.
guys was
Flash
all into
prediction.
that. All right, keep tweeting your favorite moments throughout the split by using the hashtag NALCS so we can hype or rather share your hype moments throughout the broadcast. That's going to do it for us here. Let's send it over to Freak, Kobe, and Zyrene for NALCS tonight. That's a lot of letters where they'll review this week's games and look towards next week's matchups. I'm ready for a nap.
What's up, everyone? Welcome to NALCS tonight. They told me I could have any cast I want, so I chose the best of 7, and I got 3 of us here. Yeah, that's right. I tied it together from the analyst desk. Kobe and Zyrene are here to talk with me about what happened in NALCS today as well as yesterday. How you doing?
I'm doing great.
How you
Picked
doing?
me. I'm honored to be on I guess your show
The third
today.
best of 7.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Freak.
You're welcome. You're the first best of 7. I'm number 2. That's the stack rank right here.
You picked yourself second?
Yeah, I'm second best. I mean, I have respect for Kobe. You're up there. So let's talk about what happened this week, of course. A couple of teams went 2-0. Up first, Echo Fox undefeated in first place. I said here last week, 18-0 quote me. We're 1/8 of the way there or something.
You also said you're going to keep saying it until they lose a game.
18-0 quote me. Echo Fox is great.
And Echo Fox, yeah, taking down TSM and Cloud9. But remember, these were actually come from behind victories in both of them. TSM were up about 10,000 gold. Cloud9 were up, I believe, about 8,000 at one point. So it kind of reminded me of Immortals with Huni and Adrian in 2016, where it was like, even when they're behind, I still have this feeling of, no, they know how to play these games and have these team fights. That's where they really excel, is those skirmishes.
It also kind of removed one of the drawbacks that people will always throw at undefeated teams of like, yeah, they're just smashing early though. How will they do in a late game? You know, how will they do from behind? Versus TSM, that probably should have been a TSM win. Like, that was a very big lead that TSM had and a lot of control in the game. And Echo Fox, they were able to say, I mean, we haven't listened on the communications, but it seemed like they were able to stay, you know, fairly cool and calm there in the late game, playing defensively and farming up until they, you know, saw an opening.
And Huni got destroyed. He did. Both of those games at the start. He got dove in both their matchups, and I thought that was really cool to see because it's not just the Huni show, right? You have Dardoch, who got player of the game in their matches, and Phoenix, who was also in the running too. Like, both of those guys are stepping up immensely to help that team. So I bought that crypto, boys. I was like, my preseason power rankings had them third, you know, not number one, but I still had them up there.
So you were also wrong because they're number one, right?
Well, I mean, it's not the end of the season yet.
All right, so you're going to predict they're going to go down.
Still had them higher than everybody else, though.
That's true, though. I'm going to ride the 18-0 for now. Let's talk about the next match that we really cared about, which was the Cloud9 100 Thieves one. 100 Thieves coming in undefeated, Cloud9, and they're doing pretty well for themselves.
Yeah, we had kind of had the insane. This is really the matchup that made me look at, you know, what's going on in that bottom lane. Like, there's so many globals now, and like this Baron was absolutely insane. And Cloud9 really handing 100 Thieves that first loss. I was not expecting that at the top of the day, but 100 Thieves, they looked really good after their matchup in the previous day. And, you know, we were saying, you know, maybe they're in that contenders pretenders spot and looking a little bit more like contenders in my opinion.
I mean, this was just such a clean game from Cloud9. Yeah. As exciting as the Echo Fox versus TSM, you know, comeback and all the twists and turns they had in that game, this was Cloud9 with a really well laid out strategy coming into the game, and then they executed on it. There was only like maybe a couple hiccups super late in the game where they basically already had it wrapped up. Yeah. But they never really felt worried, right? It was a very clean sort of snowball. And one of those earlier victories than we're used to seeing in the current meta. So I just thought this was a really good sign for them, in addition to the fact that LirA, we were talking about this week was going to be the hardest exam that he's going to have because he has Huni and Someday back-to-back as opponents. He takes two super strong matchups into it, right? Offensive champions. He's playing Jace, and he's playing Camille for the second one, and he plays these with high forward percentage. He's playing them well, and he actually executed really well today.
Yeah, and basically it was like party in the top lane in those games. I remember just constantly we had teleports, we had Shen ultis throwing it off. Like, it was really like play around that top lane in that matchup, and I really loved watching that because LirA, he's getting a lot of attention as a rookie, and it seems like it hasn't been going to his head, and Denson even said he didn't seem really nervous on stage, and that he's played quite well. He's played 4 basically bruisers slash, you know, AD champions.
Fighters, right?
And not really anything tanky, so I'm liking seeing LirA on C9.
It is interesting because I remember talking with Stunt in the player lounge, it was yesterday actually, just off camera, and he's like, yeah, you know, I don't know if people are surprised LirA is good. Like, I thought he was going to be great the whole time. And it's like, yeah, but there's a difference between playing in Challenger and scrims and then on stage. Like, there's worlds of difference there where you can just choke hardcore, and LirA one who's holding up pretty well. Of course, the rest of Cloud9 looking good. I believe they're up to 3-1, so that's looking pretty solid for them. One other game I want to bring up, though, is the CLG versus Golden Guardians. That one actually ended up being a bit close, but CLG finally got a win on the board as a result of this.
Yeah, you can say that. It was a bit close. There were quite a few moments where the bit close kind of swung, and there was a very big difference and some very big plays for both of the teams, honestly. Golden Guardians looked like they had a pretty good, you know, handle on this game early on. Then there was this Baron play where they didn't have teleport on their top laner. He was in base, actually. They started it even. And from that point, CLG kind of retook control. And then they were able to end it out. So, you know, that's a good sign for CLG, but it wasn't one of these super convincing, they're back at it, straight to the top sort of victories.
Yeah, what else do you expect from a 0-3 team coming into that game?
Yeah, I really did like who he's playing that game with the split pushing on the Ryze. And when I was watching his player cam a lot, he is very vocal when he's split pushing. He's basically directing pretty much everybody on the map while he's doing that. And I really liked seeing that from CLG. Because remember, they were that team where it was like they're going to start 1-3-1ing with Darshan and Huhi in these side lanes. And they looked really good. I'd actually say last split, they looked best when they were doing 1-3-1s. And then sometimes Huhi would collapse on Darshan's lane. So I want to see them kind of go back to that and have more of that as a strategy.
Yeah, it is good for two different reasons. Because right now it feels like CLG is kind of a 2v5 team. I think their bot lane is playing among the worst they have in their career. Reignover seems to still be in some level of a slump. He's running in and dying a lot. And Huhi's on top form. Darshan's in a good spot. And so, okay, one is they're a 2v5 team in a little bit, but also they're a team that's actually 1-3 running, which is interesting to see because we're seeing so many deathball teams right now. Everyone's playing control mages in the mid lane. You're playing tank supports like Tom Kench, where like you can't get picks anyway, so why bother? And they're actually doing something at least a little bit different, which is fun to see a couple different styles come through. Going to move on to individual players, as we talked about CLG having some good performers. Player of the game totals. Here at the end of the second week, of course, every team has played 4 games. You can only get player of the game if you've won. And we can see 2 players with 2 honors to their names with Dardoch and Febiven. Want to point out that with Clutch being 2-2, he's gotten all of them.
Yeah, I mean, 1 extra game is not the ginormous lead or whatever, but these 2 players are pretty interesting because we'll start with Febiven here on the Azir game. This is the one that caught all the attention from everybody, and that was another one of the kind of question mark CLG games where even in the interview afterwards, Febiven was like, I don't really know what they were doing there, and it was a lot of effort in getting him to this like 10-0 Azir status that he was, but he had some very good, just if you look at the individual mechanics that he's been able to pull off and the kind of decision making, they mentioned holding on to his ultimate until there was a really key moment instead of just kind of using it in a team fight. So there are a lot of little things that do bode well specifically for him, even though some people will point to, okay, but opponents were doing some silly things.
Yeah, it's always interesting as well when you look at player of the game because if you look at stacked rosters, more people are actually kind of competing for it, right? If you look at Echo Fox,
like Echo Fox,
exactly.
Dardoch is on the top still.
And that's why it's impressive, because Dardoch getting 2, Phoenix has 1, and then I believe Huni has 1 as well for the Lucian game at the very start. So even though they've won 4 games, it's not like one person is carrying them to victory. They have multiple carries, whereas Clutch, they have those 2 wins. Febiven's kind of the guy who's been getting them those wins. The bottom lane that they tried to, kind of play through sometimes, it doesn't actually like work out. They're more stable, right? And Solo hasn't had incredible performances either. So when you have a team that's around like 1 person, they're more likely to get that player of the game.
And you talked about versus Echo Fox, teams have been camping Huni, and it was like a couple of games, and that's the person who you'd expect to have all the player of the games, right? But they're
stopping them from getting them.
It's another showing of like, it's really good when you can have multiple people that are viable for player of the game if someone gets camped, right? So it's just more options.
So I want to ask you then to you guys, because again, lots of competition here, only 4 games in. Who are the people that aren't number 1 in the player of the game standings that you think have been having a really good season so far?
Ooh, Phoenix and Xmithie, I think, are the 2 for me. Because Phoenix, this guy, he came in and it was like he just bodied Febiven, top of the player of the game standings, right? Just obliterated him on Azir. And then he kept having consistent performances, and even up against Jensen, even in CS, right? Able to pressure the map at the same time. And so he's going up against these guys that you'd normally be like, oh, if somebody comes back to the LCS, you got to kind of watch them up against Jensen, Bjergsen, and all of this talent. And he's just doing just fine. It's like Phoenix was gone for a while. He was probably training somewhere, hidden on a mountain or something. It was called NA Challenger, but he eventually came back, and now he's holding up, and he's doing incredibly well, and I'm very impressed by him.
And another player you mentioned, I guess, is in Xmithie, part of that C9 bot lane, one that I think didn't get spoken of a lot, but they have been consistently incredible, and again, we're going to talk about Xmithie specifically here, was very good today.
And he was good all weekend. I loved his plays.
There was only one thing, was the hiccups that I talked about, later in the game after they had this ginormous lead, them ending it out. He has been, throughout history, like very good timing on his Taric ultimates, and he was one of the first Taric players, to adopt the champion here in North America. They could have used it better as a team, and you can say, okay, well, you should coordinate with the tank who's going to go in as well as the Taric player, or who's the one that you're actually calling for that. But that would probably be the only, little demerit, I guess,
suboptimal
from this week's play. But yeah, because I think Cloud9, the team overall has really had kind of a second wind. All the hype after like day 1 or in week 1 was about the undefeated teams, right? But since Cloud9 lost one early on, there wasn't the same level of hype. But I think in addition to Xmithie, you know, Jensen has been right up there as well, and Cloud9 are going to come on strong as kind of one of the now dark horses, since attention was taken away.
Well, people were saying they lost the offseason, right? And, it was
that's
like,
another
oh
reason.
no, they lost contracts and they lost impact. It's like they got LirA, who's proving that he's actually quite good and he's playing these bruisers. And then they have Svenskeren, who, you know, he's doing
Death leader.
Yeah, he's doing Svenskeren things, I guess. But I still feel like in those situations, your jungler's going to look the worst when you have to like check for vision and stuff. So I think Svenskeren does still play for the team. We aren't seeing like the Lee Sin Svenskeren that we were thinking of, but LirA is kind of pulling that attack damage duty in the top lane.
Yeah, it's interesting. So let's actually move forward then to what we're going to see next week. 8.2, which is on live right now, if all of you playing at home, is going to hit Summoner's Rift for the pros here starting in week 3. 8.2 had some big changes. First one, giant reworks to support items. Sightstone's deleted. Now completing your quest gives you the ward active. Relic Shield poaching is probably gone from bottom lane. Spellfuse poaching is probably gone from the support role. Who wants to start?
Biggest thing, to me, is the biggest thing, right? Because everyone's been complaining about bottom lane, double relics. Not only is the healing nerfed, but because of the Sightstone, it changing into Sightstone now from Quest, you don't get the big shield. And that was something that a lot of people, you know, in solo queue would just like copy pros, and people are just like building relic shields and like, yeah, this is great. And they didn't even like exactly realize how or when. But the quest was a big part of it.
What?
Exactly.
Immediately
when you get this giant shield,
praise.
that was a big part of the power. So that being moved away and it turning into the Sightstone upgrade and all those things, I think, is going to be one of the biggest changes, even though this patch is actually loaded with quite a few things that could affect the meta.
Yeah, and I'm actually really wondering what's going to happen to the whole landscape, because this takes away Frost Queen claim from like Vladimir, Malzahar in the mid lane, and then in the bottom side, the Relic Shield being taken away kind of from AD carries. Does this also affect supports, right? Because now
I think it does.
Your poke is going to stick if you start playing poke again with Arcane Comet.
Right now in 8.1, the only viable supports are tanks and the super defensive squishy supports that don't rely on winning lane. You just have a pushing lead and you hope for priority. But yeah, is Zyra playable? Is Brand playable?
Fortune, right?
Lulu MF lanes, do those work again? Can you play aggro AD carries, right? Like, is Caitlyn actually going to be a good champion now that you can actually poke people down? I think those are going to be really important. Let's move on, though, to champion changes. Nunu. Obviously overbuffed in 8.2, got hot fixed after the first day, still seems very
still overbuffed, yeah.
Still probably a bit strong.
Yeah, so we may or may not see, you know, depending on how much the team philosophy revolves around that type of jungling, because it is quite different. Still see Nunu, even with the hot fixes and that all coming in.
Yeah.
You know, when patches come to the LCS, we do apply the hot fixes that were issued during them. But even more than Nunu, everyone always thinks of the counterpart to Nunu as the Azir combo. And since Malzahar also received some nerfs, we really do think that there's going to be extreme focus on Azir. And that might result in us not seeing him as much because he'll get pushed from, oh, we're always going to pick him, to we're always going to ban him.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that is kind of interesting because it means there's some bans that are going to shift around, right? Malzahar will probably exchange out for Azir. Ornn will probably exchange out for whether it's Nunu or even Ryze, and you might see less Ryze. So that's kind of my thought on it right now is we're going to start seeing more mid laners because some of them got nerfed from that S tier and more bans are freed up.
I got some suggestions for you as well, because we've already seen the Xerath, so it's not like, oh, some crazy pick, but I think that Xerath is extremely strong right now. And even though people were kind of criticizing Bjergsen's play or like there are question marks around it, I really think Xerath is very strong right now. He has basically infinite wave clear, which is the most important thing for competitive. With the new mana flow ban, his passive auto attack giving him back mana, you basically can clear the wave consistently and have this long range threat. And Bjergsen, very high skill accuracy, and he displayed definitely a mastery of that champion. So I think that more people will actually either start practicing Xerath or who already have been, bring that out. Vel'Koz is kind of in a similar thing where you have that super long range. It's not quite the same as far as the mana sustain.
We've seen some people like bring out the Vel'Koz. He's around like once in a while, right?
I really feel like those ones, we might get to see a couple more of those. And then, of course, the pocket zillions for the guys who are actually quite good at it.
Sure.
Cassiopeia will probably jump up as well. We saw Phoenix play it as a counter to the Ryze.
I actually saw, shoot, I can't remember what league it was even, but I saw a highlight of a Cassiopeia. It was like level 2, kind of cheesing with the precision.
Presence of mind plus
presence
mana
of
flow ban.
mind.
Infinite mana, just all in them.
Leveled up to level 2, so 7 seconds after you level up, you can just spend as much mana as you want. And Cassiopeia, since you have these instant casts, I was like, oh my god, that's some tilting cheese. But you can check, like people will now probably check and be like, ooh, it's a persistent Cassiopeia. I think I know what the plan is. Then the only question is, can you actually play around that?
Yeah, it'll be fun to watch for, though. It was interesting. Let's move on to one final thing. Next week's schedule. Saturday, once again, kicks off for North American LCS. There's the 5 games on your screen. To you two gentlemen, what are the ones you're looking at most importantly in this third week of LCS?
I'm watching Clutch Gaming versus 100 Thieves very closely. I'm looking at that mid lane matchup in particular because that's Ryu versus Febiven, the guys who were on H2K. Of course, Ryu came in and then was replaced by Febiven when he came over for Phoenix 1. And it's Febiven versus Ryu and Prawley, his former coach.
True.
Yeah, I think I would also pay attention to the one right before that. Even though Optic Gaming had a slow start with their 0-3, their victory just a few games ago today was definitely convincing, and with kind of this resurgence of hype around Cloud9, since their rookie top laner is performing very well. This is going to be an important kind of question mark for them to answer. Are they going to be able to kind of cruise over any sort of bottom of the half teams and actually make a strong run for the top spot early on?
Yeah, I think all the Cloud9 fans right now could be very hopeful. The team looks good, and they can keep pushing forward. And Optic, as you mentioned, got a win on the board, so they can start saying, all right, now it's time to start taking names and see if they can move their way up. As you guys saw on the graphic a little bit ago, Azay will be hosting an NALCS lounge stream with Febiven and Power of Evil as well, so stay tuned for that one on Saturday evening's game during Game 5. It'll be wonderful, and I'll be sad that I'm not doing it. Thanks very much.
Kicked out, freak.
Yeah, I got kicked out of my own home. It's okay, though. It's been fun hanging out with you two. I'll see at least one of you next week as well, because Jasper's never going to be on this show. I'm not picking him ever, but one of you's going to go
Be
play
honest,
Isaiah.
I see you every week, no matter what,
true.
anyway.
I will see you both next week.
Can't avoid it.
Can't avoid it. All right, that's going to do it for us. Thanks for watching, and we'll all see you next week.
Fox looking to run the tables up to 2 weeks and stay undefeated. TSM, a tough opponent just to hit 500. Looking for a gank. Haunter with the ulti, going to go for the tower dive. Gangplank is not quite enough. Pretty very low. A little bit more from Haunter required. Has the flash, looking for it. The ignite's enough though.
I'm 1 HP. Bounce is dead. Bounce is dead. Flat. Nice. Good job.
Needs to get out. Does barely escape with his life. But what can they do? No outtake. Does take him down. Venezuela on the other side. Is Phoenix dominating. They sweep another weekend and take down TSM. Ryu gets the press. Multiple targets for Scaring out. Liquid does it onto Ryu, and that's going to take him down. The ulti follows. The Baron goes to Cloud9.
Brain check. You have a brain today?
Yeah. Today.
Right, you have a finger today?
Yes.
You are not missing the WQ, right?
No, I want.
Right. Do you have a brain today?
Oh, yeah.
Just getting a great double knocker back smoothly up to the base call, and it's a rampage in the base.
Yeah! Let's go, FLICKR!
Arrow dancing away, Total, offensive blast code, the Neo flash, Total tries to make a big play, finds the status, Arrow cues him, and that's the free one on the other side.
Paros, numero paros. Got him.
Nice, we get back. 18 wants a piece. Sealy okay.
Yeah, keep going. I'm coming. Can you go?
Okay, let's go back. High coming in from behind, but using the too late contract. Flag on to multiple people. Tied to Blood Bunch 4, who he's on a killing spree, and the Golden Guardians will not have enough today. When he did it, he might almost be able to get the third kill. Febiven barely staying alive. Good lord, man. The stun comes through, razzle dazzle, baby, Febiven trying to get himself away. Will it be enough? Doublelift wants to say no, and he'll say it.
Going more. Hey, go on. I'm just ulti him.
Yeah.
Wait.
1 second.
I'm looking.
Yeah.
Nice.
Another ulti. Pobelter just is getting these left, right, and center. That's all she wrote. Clutch is done, and Liquid takes the game.